We'll tell you how he got 3 of his teammates away from gunfire and down from a cliff. That and more coming up on Shepard Smith Report.
President Trump saying he's open to whatever the Senate decides on Brett Kavanaugh, but he also said Democrats should take a look at their own behavior.
You just said some senators are not angels, and you've seen some of them in
I would say some of them, yes.
compromising situations.
Yes.
Could you tell us who and exactly what situation?
No, I think I'll save it for a book like everybody else, and I'll write it. Okay? I'm not giving it to you.
Joining me now, Matt Schlapp, chairman of the American Conservative Union, and Adrian Elrod, former strategic communications director for Hillary Clinton. Great to have you both on. I want to bring back up these polls that just came in at the top of the hour from Quinnipiac. Poll asking today, do you approve of how Democrats have handled Kavanaugh accusations? Approve 52%, disapprove 38%. And then they also disapprove of that of Republicans, 56 to 33%. So we have a situation where the polarization in the country is what it is. But take a look at this ad that is being run by Demand Justice. Then I'm going to have you both react. Watch this.
I thought it was my civic duty to relay the information I had about Mr. Kavanaugh's conduct so that those considering his nomination would know about this assault. My responsibility is to tell you the truth.
All right, so that ad running in Alaska. Matt, she is one of the 4 senators, Lisa Murkowski, that Chris Stirewalt was speaking about earlier. How do you think this week is going to go?
Well, there's lots of other polls, Dana. Most of the polls from these red states where there are active Senate races are very good for Brett Kavanaugh. And so I think it's going to be a good week. The one thing for Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins to remember is Susan Collins in the state of Maine, Donald Trump won half of Maine in the year 2016. He actually got an electoral vote, and they have a pro-Trump Republican governor. And in Alaska, Lisa Murkowski lost her last primary. If she were to vote against Brett Kavanaugh, I don't think she could pull out of another primary. So the politics in their home states are much more favorable for Trump's nominee.
Take a listen, Adrian, to what Senator Flake said last night about whether he could have made this decision if he was still running.
Senator Flake, you've announced that you're not running for re-election, and I wonder, could you have done this if you were running for re-election?
No, not a chance.
Not a chance?
No.
Because politics has become too sharp, too partisan?
Yeah, there's no value to reaching across the aisle. There's no currency for that anymore. There's no incentive.
So, Adrian, when you look at somebody like Joe Manchin of West Virginia, all eyes on him. He's the Democrat running for re-election. As Chris Stirewalt said, the polls in West Virginia very high in support of President Trump and Kavanaugh. Do you think that will be a problem for Democrats in their goal to try to stop this nomination?
Well, I think to an extent it could be. But look, ultimately, you've got to think about a couple things. Number one, Joe Manchin, Heidi Heitkamp, Democrats who are on the ballot this election cycle who have tough re-elections, they've got to give something to their grassroots base. And their grassroots base, the progressive Democrats in those states, are very fired up about Brett Kavanaugh. They do not want to see him on the Supreme Court. They do not think that he deserves, or in Brett Kavanaugh's case, believes that he is entitled to a seat at the Supreme Court. So you've got to give something to energize your voters, your base voters in your district.
Well, take a look at this.
I ultimately believe that he will.
Adrian, if I could just break in, because this caught my eye today. This morning, Matt, listen to this. I'll have you react. There's a California woman. She accused Democratic candidate Gil Cisneros of sexual harassment. She has now retracted her allegation after meeting with him, saying she misunderstood the conversations and no longer feels she was harassed. Josh Kroshar, tweeting about the situation, helps Dems in the hopes of winning the competitive House seat, but broadly gives Republicans ammunition that false allegations are made in politics. That was Democrat against Democrat, Matt, out in California.
Yeah, no, this is exactly right, this is all the conversations that are happening around the country as a result of what the charges that have been leveled at Brett Kavanaugh. I know Brett Kavanaugh, I know his character. This is inconsistent with the man he is in the public life, the respected public life he has had. And I think there's a lot of people across. I think this cuts through politics. I do think the polls are showing something different, which is people want a fair process. They don't like the games that have been played by Dianne Feinstein and the rest of the Democratic members on this committee. And they think Brett Kavanaugh should be judged by his whole career and not by his high school yearbook. The politics of this help Brett Kavanaugh. We're going to see that as the days go by this week.
All right, I'm sorry we ran out of time because of Jeff Flake's sound. Adrian, we're going to have you back. Matt Schlapp and Adrian Elrod, thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
Survivors of the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history reunite 1 year after a gunman opened fire on a crowded concert from his hotel room in Las Vegas. If you're at a country music concert last year, Jonathan Hunt is live in Las Vegas. Jonathan, it must be a tough day for all of those who experienced the horror of that night.
A very tough day indeed, Dana, and there are a series of ceremonies here today for those to remember what happened on that awful night. It began with a sunrise remembrance ceremony today, a 58-second moment of silence, 1 second for each of the victims, and then the release of 58 doves. And for all those who survived that night but were caught up in the terror, it is obviously a particularly difficult day. Today, one of those was Natalie Grumet. We spoke to her. She was shot in the face. She has already gone through 8 surgeries. More will have to come. She talked to us about her memories of that terrible night. Listen here.
We all got down on the ground and it was extreme chaos. You know, people are yelling for help. People are yelling to run. People are yelling to stay down. And you don't know what to do. You just want to get out of there and survive and go back to your family and friends. And you think about everybody in your life that's significant and you want to return to them.
Impossible, of course, Dana, for those of us who didn't experience it, to imagine just what kind of terror people like Natalie felt on October 1st, 2017. Dana?
They sure have gone through a lot, Jonathan, and still no answers to the question of why.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing for so many people here, Dana. Of course, there was a months-long investigation, but at the end of that, in August of this year, Sheriff Joe Lombardo, who led that investigation, had to admit it. Investigators simply could not find a motive for why Stephen Paddock did what he did. Dana?
All right, Jonathan, thank you. President Trump will award the Medal of Honor to a Green Beret veteran for his heroic actions in Afghanistan in just a few moments.